A lot of people attack Americans for doing some pretty dumb things in the world, and yet they overlook any stupid things done by other countries. This doesn't only have to be done by foreign politics, but also how research and development kicks in. For this, we're going to be traveling to China, where we will see a very disturbing experiment.
Scientists produce healthy mice from same-sex parents. Chinese scientists have made a scientific breakthrough. Scientists in China have successfully used gene editing and stem cell techniques to produce healthy mice with two mothers. According to a study published in the journal Cell Stem Cell, the researchers used cells called haploid embryonic stem cells, which contained half of the usual number of chromosomes from one mouse and took DNA from another mouse. The scientists then used CRISPR-Cas9 to delete the imprinting from 3 regions of the DNA by cutting out a single letter of the genetic code, which made the genetic material appear more male. Without the correct pattern of male and female imprinting, a viable embryo cannot be produced. The embryonic stem cells were then injected into the eggs of a different female mouse, which developed into embryos. This produced 29 live mice from 210 embryos. The scientists say the mice were healthy and went on to have mice of their own. The author of the study said this technique could be 10 times more difficult for humans and primates.
It's quite unbelievable. The human race could be using that money, equipment, and talent to help cure cancer, or Alzheimer's, or maybe even learn how to set up neural links so that amputees can have robotic arms. You know, something that society really needs. But no, we're actually going to do this shit. I read about the research that was done, so let me share it to you. In China, scientists use genetic editing and stem cells to have female mice able to produce offspring. Right from the start, I just want to say that this is a complete waste to use stem cells, which can be used to treat patients with fractured spines so that they can walk, on a useless experiment when the natural way has been proven to be much better. During past experiments, the mice undergo a medical treatment where certain maternal or paternal genes are shut off during the development of sperm and egg cells. By deleting imprinted genes from immature eggs, the bodies of these mice evolve differently, which leads to the idea of changing their genitalia in a certain genetic way so that when coitus is done by the two mice, it tricks the body into believing that it is a male-female interaction. This has led to genetic deformations in the past. But in China, researchers use something called haploid embryonic stem cells containing half the normal number of chromosomes and DNA of each parent. They stated that the haploid embryonic stem cells are similar to primordial germ cells, which are the precursors of eggs and sperms. One advantage is that they contain even less imprinting programming that ultimately causes maternal or paternal genes to be expressed. By placing them into a mouse, it will allow them to basically have mice with the reproduction ability of both genders and will believe to allow them to, quote, breed healthy offspring. Okay, do these people not realize that this is animal cruelty? People say that you can't have a consensual relationship with an animal because they can't consent. Well, you can't have the same thing here. This is exactly like forced gender change. These are the things being done in Iran. Can you imagine what the reaction would be if a human had to go one of those things in a first world Western country? Now, the other thing I also want to touch on is that homosexuals cannot reproduce and how many progressive figures are praising this achievement as if it's a major step for the LGBT community.
I have a theory about why people are losing their crap over gender right now. And a new study out of China supports it, I think. And now to my theory, which is, what if people are going crazy over gender right now because we know we're about to evolve on some sort of basic level? We already know we can make babies in petri dishes and then lock them in a freezer until we're ready to have them, or just throw them out. And we can now make mice with two moms, and lots of animals don't need males to reproduce. So what if we're going crazy over gender right now because we now know that we don't need a girl and a boy to have sex in order to continue the species anymore? We can do it in a lab, and that crazy knowledge is hitting us right in the DNA, all like epigenetically.
May I remind you that this experiment is not a natural one because you are extensively changing the DNA of an animal in order to produce offspring. Let me also point out that this experiment is self-defeating in the sense that it is not homosexual reproduction. It involves putting the genes of the opposite gender into the host, and so basically that mouse is turned into a he-she or an intersex organism that can reproduce. But because this is enforcing progressive views about the LGBT community, they are overlooking all the cruel attributes that these animals have to face. Not to mention that if you dare criticize these people, they will label you as some kind of hate monger, even if you don't say anything hateful. I experienced that myself in a previous video. PETA, which is supposed to protect animals, is embarking on a social justice warrior campaign to turn people vegan instead of focusing on something like this. It's so sad, especially when research can be done on something that is actually an issue.